he's getting. How is everyone doing? We would like to welcome you all. Myself, Brandon DeCruz, my co-host. God, Brandon, you're beautiful. But we want to welcome you all to our podcast that we're doing, which we've called Chasing Clarity, Health and Fitness Podcast. And the reason for this is we're going to get into that, but we really wanted to, because of who we are, talk about things that inspire us, the questions we have, issues we see, and really to just kind of bring a concise, clear point of reference for anyone who's looking to improve their health and fitness in any parameter they could think of. But that is kind of the gist of why we're here, the gist of what we're looking to do with this project, which we'll try to break down. But first, Brandon, man, how's things been going in your neck of the woods the last few days for you, bro?
And everything has been doing great. I want to reach out to all the people in the audience and let them know that, I'm extremely excited to be here with you. This has been a project that has been in the works for quite some time. And you and I are not rookies to the podcast scene. I was actually looking over it earlier today. I've done close to 100 podcasts over the last few years, and you've run many successful of your own. You have the Excellence Cartel, and you've been on a ton. So this has been, I want everyone out there to know that this has been something that's been in the background and been a project that you and I have really been going back and forth about for quite some time. And the reason for that, like Jeff mentioned about the name, Chasing Clarity, really, what does that mean? Really, what we're trying to do is bridge the gap between complexity of information and then clarity of that information and how to apply it. And we see a lot of, other podcasts within the scene. This is a very saturated space, as is the fitness industry in general. However, our goal is really to cut through the noise and get you guys both the information that is going to be useful, but also how to apply that information. So really that is an all-encompassing view as to why we're here and why we're doing this and why we're putting it, our time and energy into this. But as far as a week perspective, man, this has been an exciting week. A lot of things on the horizon and a lot of exciting things coming about. It's, even just to reference things in the future. I was just looking over travel plans for Nashville because I will be heading out there to see you and to celebrate my birthday weekend with the Physique Education Collective. So that is something that I'm extremely excited to be a part of, as well as to be going for now my third time. But besides that, business has been doing well. I have a lot of competitors in contest prep at the moment. And it's just it's an exciting time of year, as well as I'm really happy to be able to kick off this chapter.
Dude, I gotta be honest. Like when you hit me up and we chatted about this, I was like, hell yeah, I'm excited to work with you because you're like me. You're up at a certain time every day. It's very routine. Like you get, roll your sleeves up and do the work and just get it done. And I'm excited to see where this goes. But I gotta say something funny. When I had you send over the pictures of you for the podcast, all of them were shirtless. And I sent it to Thera, who's, you guys, anyone who knows me knows that's my chief of staff. I recently promoted her and brought her in as a quarter owner of Iron House for all her work she's done for me, which is where the PEC is going to be going on at Iron House. But I started laughing. I'm like, I think I need to do Jeff in the Wild has Brandon posing pictures and just take pictures of me shirtless all throughout everywhere I travel and be like, who did it better, Brandon or Jeff? And I invite you to.
I want to say a caveat to that, though. You asked me for photos. So Jeff says, listen, I'm going to get a graphic created for the podcast, and I'm in the gym, and I only have a limited amount of photos. I don't have my portfolio. And now, mind you, like one of the things that I've done most prominently within fitness has been fitness modeling. So I'm looking through my images, and I'm like, all right, they're all shirtless, but hey, it's a fitness podcast. It's about health and fitness, body composition, all that stuff. Let me send this over. And then he's like, hey, man, do you have a picture with a shirt? And I'm like, dude, that's not how I'm going to bring in the viewers. It's going to be shirtless. Come on.
I know.
I got him some more appropriate. Photos that do have some clothing. So we'll see what the graphic comes out like. But yeah, that's just a little caveat to the disclaimer about it. It wasn't from an ego perspective. It was just, hey, we're going to be the photos that I have the best access to at the moment, because I was going to be at the gym with a client, as well as what's going to fit the podcast.
I was just laughing because I'm like, well, if anything, I need more shirtless photos of myself. Oh, it just made me go, well, I guess I better hire some photography people to follow me around and just do it at the gym. So I'll up my game, Brandon. Don't worry. The listeners will be able to follow on our socials about how good my game is up to compare. But I just enjoyed having that little banter with you because that's something that me and you have fun with each other about. So absolutely. Who is Jeff Black? So I'm going to take this real quick, Brandon, and then I would like for you to introduce yourself for those followers who might not know the full, kit and caboodle, I guess, about you. But I'm 41. I'm going to do like an age, sex, location, ASL thing from AOL days. I'm male and I live in
Tinder profile.
I don't have Tinder, bro. I think I survived that for one day and I went, this is some bullshit. And I logged right back off. I'm very fortunate that I'm actually seeing someone in a pretty good relationship. So I'm very happy in that regard. But 41, male, hail from Nashville, Tennessee. I've lived here since 2004. Prior to that, I was worked for the Department of Homeland Security, which is what brought me here. That was probably, like I talked about, the PEC. I'm real big on leadership. That was like my first entry into the leadership realm, working for the government and going up through that ladder. And then I went on my own as a trainer in 2007 and kind of learned throughout the ranks. But what started it for me was I was born with this brittle bone disease known as osteogenesis imperfecta. And it affects 25,000 people in the US. So I ended up getting on a skateboard, and I've been writing about this for my book. And some people have read some of it, and it's kind of like, it's real intense because it's like David Goggins' story, kind of like on steroids, for lack of a better way of saying it. But from the skateboard accident, I had to have like all these surgeries to walk again. And then I walked into high school. I dealt with bullying. I got suspended over hitting a kid for keep calling me crippled. And I found Paul DeMaio on the cover of a Flex magazine as I was cruising to Kroger's, and I just never looked back. Health and fitness bodybuilding has been something I've been doing for 27 years. I'm the only person with my brittle bone disease to have done this. And it's kind of cool to realize that and to get ready to end my chapter and watch my youngest son start taking over the reins, since he's been expressing interest in bodybuilding. But my passion really stems from the power that working out gave me. It gave me a chance to believe in myself. It gave me a chance to build myself. Most importantly, it gave me a chance to empower myself. And that's why I'm so passionate about health and fitness. It's why I've been a coach for over 17 years. It's why now I'm very fortunate to own a gym that I'm trying to convince you to come down and help me open up and run number 2 and number 3, but that's a later conversation. But I'm very blessed in that regard. We're almost at 1,000 members, just all these great things. And the health and fitness space is just near and dear to me. And some of the stuff I've seen over the last few years has made me go, there needs to be a correction. And I'm so glad I get to do this with you to really kind of help shift that direction, shift that perception, and get the ship going in the right direction. Again, but that's a little bit about me and my background in regards to it. I love everything to do with this industry, and I owe it everything and won't stop until I meet the dirt and depart this world.
Man, I love that. I always tell you, and I'll tell the audience this, Jeff is an incredible storyteller. And he's someone that he has shared his story with me personally, whether it be on phone conversations, or he has a great ability to be able to do that, especially when we capture audiences. So when he does public presentations, he does seminars and things of that sort, he's always able to encapsulate who he is, but also what has made him that. And that's something I look to Jeff, and I say this quite often, whether it be on my own podcast that I do with other people, and I say this publicly and also in private. Jeff is one of my mentors, and I really look to him for a leadership capacity, but also he's able to open up, and he does so without fear of judgment or without fear of criticism or anything of that sort. And he's so genuinely open and transparent with things. And that's something I want to say this openly, like, that I really respect about you, my friend. So I hope, and my goal is to be able to do the same, especially with our audience, because I'm kind of known as like the science guy, someone that puts out a lot of quality information. It's evidence-based, whatever you want to call it. But I have had trouble opening up about my own past and the things that have gotten me to where I'm at, with both people in my own life, but also on a public platform. So I look forward to this being a podcast in which I'm able to do that. And I hope to be able to start that today, actually.
Man, if you were here, I'd give you the biggest hug right now and be like, it's okay, we can make this happen. But, man, I want to say this, I appreciate that about you commenting on the storytelling, but I think that's what's so powerful about health and fitness. I think that's what's so powerful about the coaching realm. It's all the stories that matter. And everyone's matter, but it's the way that everything's individualized. Like, you and I have met people who've overcome eating disorders, overcome financial ruin, whether it be through relationships, business, just so forth. And they hold out hope. And it's because they double down on making themselves better. And we've just witnessed it with the thousands of lives that we've helped over the years get better, that we just felt like we needed to do more. And that's what led us here. But I want you, Brandon, to tell everybody about you. I know you're the science guy, but give them a little bit about, because you're in the supplement industry, you got the fitness modeling. Like, break it down a little bit more. I know you're real. I know you're like me and you don't like to talk too much about it, but what you've really done, man, is some impressive things. And I really want people to know that too.
I appreciate that, my friend. So yeah, like Jeff mentioned, I've spent the past 14 years working full-time within the health and fitness industry. And over that time, I've pretty much done it all, to be honest with you guys. I've worked in almost every side or aspect of the industry you could think of. I've done the one-on-one personal training in a gym. I've done supplement sales. I've done sports nutrition research and formulation. So I actually have several products on the market today, both with companies I've worked with in the past and a company that I work with currently, that I've literally created the formulas in those supplements that you can pick up off the shelf at your GNC or on bodybuilding.com or even at your local retailer. And for the past 9 years, one of my main roles and really my focus within this industry has been as an online nutrition, physique, and health coach. And that's really where my passion lies, especially in today's day and age. And so I guess it would be easy to say that fitness, nutrition, and training are both my career, but they're also what I consider my greatest passion in life. And it's something that's really driven me to be where I am today, but also everything that I'm going to do going forward. And, over the past few years, I've made appearances. I was actually counting them earlier before we got on this podcast, almost 100 over the last few years. And generally what I'm known for is digging into the science and the application of different principles and methods. And that could be in relation to dieting or metabolic adaptation or, training, energy flux. And there's a lot of topics that I really go deep on. I consider myself a T. So by a T, what I mean by that is I'm able to go wide, but then I'm really able to go deep and really deep into the trenches on specific topics. And I pride myself on that. But one of my main goals and one of our main goals with this podcast, especially with this first episode, is to open up a bit more so that you guys can get to know more about us. But especially in particular to me, I'm someone that I share a lot of information, but it's not always in relation to myself. I might talk about my training, or I might talk about my nutrition or what I do with clients. But really what I'm trying to get across is why, giving you guys a little bit of insight as to why I have such a driving passion for fitness. And, I'll say just from a fundamental perspective, both fitness and bodybuilding have been major components of my life, literally since I was a teen, when I first discovered both the physical and like the, personal benefits and the mental benefits that initially came from training itself. And, when I look back, I honestly got to say that I found the gym and training and nutrition, in this entire process, like of building my body at a time that I needed it most. So just going back, like real far back into my childhood, I grew up as a very competitive athlete and was active in pretty much every sport you could think of as a kid. But as I got into my early teens, I started to, I gravitated more towards martial arts and endurance sport. So I did both, martial arts, Taekwondo, Wateroo, different forms of karate. And then also I did track and cross country. And I pretty much narrowed my competitive focus on those three entities. And so competing and training for these sports, I got to say, like from, looking back on a 2020 perspective, they built a great foundation for me as far as hard work or self-discipline and determination are concerned. But that competitive aspect of those sports came with some drawbacks that really negatively impacted me, and something that I very rarely spoken about publicly. So if we just think about like both endurance sports and martial arts, they have a weight restriction aspect to them. So they kind of require you to be light and agile. And also around that time, I had a lot of coaches in my life that I looked to as mentors and I looked to for, advice and guidance. And they really had this, they would constantly reinforce the fact that being lighter would help me either run better or perform better, or it could get me in a lighter weight class. So this caused me to be extremely self-conscious, and especially about my weight at an early age, which eventually led me to developing an eating disorder. So I dealt with an eating disorder for multiple years, from my early childhood into my early teens. And this is something that, plagued me honestly for several years. And it caused me to be like constantly watching and restricting my food intake and under eating in order to ensure that I'd either stay within my weight class and I'd perform well. But eventually, got to the point, if anyone's out there that's dealt with an eating disorder or disordered eating behaviors, this, eventually, it's like a teeter-totter. At first you feel better because you're looking better, you're lighter, and you're seeing these wins, like you're seeing these victories. And it's something that you get this dopamine rush, like, hey, I got another pound off, or, I restricted my food even more. I'm counting calories at 12 years old. I mean, it was excessive. But eventually it goes to the other side. And, there's an inverted U where something, a stress that was, a hormetic stressor that was, you were seeing positive adaptations. I'm running better, I'm performing better. Eventually it tips over to the negative direction. And it caused me to have, a lot of health impairments. So, as a kid, I got to the point where I started to develop some injuries. And also around that time, I got some blood work done. And I remember the doctor coming back in and pretty much telling me that I had the hormone profile of like a 70-year-old. And now, mind you, I was 14 years old. So this is way off in terms of the spectrum of age. I had several, micronutrient deficiencies and all these other issues that I was dealing with, both physically and mentally, as a result of that. And so because of that, I had like pretty much a full year time period where I couldn't compete. I couldn't do anything but essentially rehab the injuries that I had incurred and try to, really bridge the gap in terms of these micronutrient deficiencies. And it was during this time that, this entire year off, where I started rehabbing these injuries under the guidance of a physical therapist. And I was really lucky. I tell you, God has divine intervention a lot of times in my life, and really has put me in a place where it's benefited me, even in times that I didn't realize it at the point. So I'm dealing with an eating disorder. I'm dealing with all these injuries. I feel like, I'm 14 years old. I feel like a lot of like what I'm living for is over, and I'm dealing with all these side effects. And I get into this position where I get into this physical therapy clinic, and it was owned by a physical therapist and a chiropractor. And luckily enough, the physical therapist was a power lifter and the chiropractor was super into nutrition. So really what they did was they introduced me to the concepts of resistance training and nutrition as a way to rebuild my body. So, I was really lucky in the fact that I didn't just get, introduced to training, but also the importance of nutrition. So I learned off the jump that I needed to fuel my body through proper nutrition to see the results of the work that I was putting in with them. And this entirely changed my relationship with food. And so eventually it led to this love of training, that sparked into an even greater interest in nutrition and everything related to fitness and health. And, as a result of loving these topics and wanting to immerse myself in them even more, the first job I ever had was in a gym. And the second job I ever had was, these were part-time jobs in high school, but they were in a supplement shop. So it's something that I've literally done in some capacity. I've worked in, and it's been a passion of mine since I was in high school. So it's been a long career in that. And it got to the point where I went to college and I was someone that was seriously into training. My roommate was a national champion wrestler that was just on the undercard of the UFC this past weekend, which I'm immensely proud of him for. So I was around really competitive athletes. A couple of my friends went to the NFL, some of my roommates. So I was around really competitive athletes. And I kind of took that competitive nature and that environment, and I just really facilitated into weight training. And eventually I was scouted out by a very high level modeling agency out in New York City. And so that kind of turned the course of my focus in terms of the direction of my training, because I started to really push my limits and see what I could do with my physique. And that eventually led me to, what turned out to be one shoe has turned out into over 100. So it's been something that has been a part of my life for quite some time. But in addition, I've been on magazines. I've done, bodybuilding.com. I've been in muscular development. I've been in all these, high level magazines, but also I've been active as a competitor in the men's physique division. I've competed 15 times over the years. So bodybuilding is another huge component of my life, because it really taught me, what are needed to get to the depths and really see what you have out of yourself. So I have all these components of fitness that have really taught me. I came from an eating disordered background, so it really helped my appreciation and relationship with food and the value that nutrition plays in it. And then I had the bodybuilding preps and the physique preps and the photo shoot preps. So I know really what pushing your body's like. And so fitness is, honestly, I'll tell you, it's been the greatest blessing in my life and has given me so many opportunities, which is why I'm so personally and professionally invested into it. And so, over that time, it's really come to me, living throughout other people, meaning really my goal now, I don't compete anymore. I still do modeling from here, on occasion, but really my focus is on my coaching. And with that, I take what I consider an evidence-informed approach. And you guys are going to see this throughout the course of our show, because I'm going to present a lot of the research and the evidence, but I say evidence-informed rather than evidence-based, because I inform myself with evidence. I inform myself with research. But really what I believe in is blending what's been proven in the research with my own anecdotal and firsthand in the trenches experience, working with every type of client. I've worked with, your lifestyle Lisa and Gen Pop Gym to, high-level competitors, professionals like Olympia-level IFBB pros. And ultimately, my goal, both with the clients that I work with and with this show and anything that I put out in general, is to bridge the gap between research and information and application in order to help others improve their body composition, optimize their performance, and enhance their health and achieve those goals in a sustainable manner, which they can maintain. So you guys are going to see that really reverberate across a lot of what Jeff and I put out throughout the course of this podcast.
100%. I think that how you and I align is we just want people to help believe in themselves again and win again for themselves. And that's the role of a coach, right? I do want to ask you a question. What Absolutely. Is the best part about competing for you? Like, what do you enjoy most when you get up there on the stage?
It isn't anything about the stage, to be honest with you. It is,
Okay.
I'm very into the process. So I was someone that when I first started competing, I've competed at the national level twice. I placed, top 10 before. However, I was someone that initially I got into competing for the competitive aspect. So the outcome was everything that I was focused on. It was about that target show date that I was 12 weeks out for. And every single day I woke up and I went to sleep with that in mind. And as I became a more experienced competitor and I worked with more and more competitors myself, it really became about the process and integrating the lessons throughout a contest prep into my day-to-day life. So those times that you're super hungry and you feel like you can't go another step on a treadmill, or you can't, go another 15 minutes without a meal. It's really testing the limits of both your physical and mental capacity, because I always say the body follows the brain. And where your mind cannot go, your body will not go. And we cannot separate our physiology from our psychology. And that's what really competing taught me, because I saw that I could push my limits so much further than I ever imagined possible. I know that, if you look into body comp assessments, they're not the most accurate, but I will say that I've been under 5% on the DEXA. So it's easy to say that I've been conditioned before, you know what I mean? So I've tested my limits physically. And I always say to my clients that I'm a big believer in walking the walk. And we're both, walking testaments of the principles and the approach to life and fitness that we preach. But I always tell my competitors and any client that I work with, I will never ask you to do something that I haven't. And it's really important that I've pushed myself to those levels that I did when I was competing, to know what another client, to be able to relate to them, especially when I work with pros. It's like they're getting to a conditioning level that very few people in the world will ever see 100%. Nor experience. You know what I mean? So it's really important to me. So all those life lessons that I've been able to transfer, not only into other aspects, physical aspects, but into business, into daily disciplines, into the fact that I wake up at 3:30 every morning. And, I'm very routine and structure oriented. That all came from competing, because there were so many things that I had to get checked off to have a successful prep, that I had to fit within the constraints of a corporate lifestyle. Because at the time I was working a corporate office job. So if I didn't get up and do 4 a.m. cardio, or if I didn't fit in my training schedule at a certain time, or if I didn't do my post-meal walks after lunch when I only had a 15-minute break, it wasn't getting done. And that wasn't acceptable, because when you get on stage, you have two options. Either get up there and know that you gave it your all, and that the package that you're presenting is every single thing that you had, or you wander up there and you lose, or potentially lose. And you wonder, had you stuck to your plan the entire way through, would the outcome have been different? And I can't live with that doubt.
I agree with you. So I've been competing since 2006. I kind of had this wild idea. In fact, if you actually look at my senior yearbook, you will see I said I was going to be the most ripped bodybuilder ever. I don't know if I've per se done that one, but I will say what keeps me going in the competition. If you watch me, man, you had mentioned, earlier on about God and his role in your life. And I'm a little bit more silent on that end of my life. But everyone who's ever watched me compete knows before I step on stage, I always raise my fist to the sky, because I know my life was for me, not against me, not to me. And what I mean by that is I enjoy that I have this brittle bone disease, that I have all these issues wrong with me, and I'm able to still get in condition that tops people who've got 2 great legs, who've got all these things going for them. And it's just because I was willing to lean into it a little bit more mental than they might have been, to be able to remove my emotions and understand that this was for me a moment to be able to show people what you can really do when you give something your all. And that is what I love about bodybuilding and competing, for the people who do it, that actually want to do it, not just get a trophy. You know what I mean? Because I think there's some differences there. But I wanted to ask that because you're like me. There's nothing like standing up there and like having that whole moment of, did I do what I needed to do the last 16 weeks to feel good about myself standing here? And that ultimately is the best feeling ever, when you know you did. When you can walk off 100%. That stage, regardless of how you place, when you can go out with your friends, knowing that, you did the best you could in all aspects of your life. And there's just something that comes from just challenging yourself to be better. And I'm glad that you share that and see that.
Absolutely. No, I think it's another opportunity because, I'm a big believer. I haven't competed in the last 2 years, but those moments were one of the most self-reflective moments that I had. The moment that I stepped on stage and I competed against another man that had given his all, it was something that I was able to say, all right, well, we only live by our subjective reality. A lot of people think they're objective. And I claim within myself, I try to be as objective as possible. But we have to realize that what we're looking through is kind of like rose tinted glasses. So we see our experience through our eyes, through our perspective, but it's really hard. And that's why coaching is so important and why I have mentors within my own life. And as a coach, I have a coach. And as a coach, you have a coach, things like that, because it really is hard, especially when we're going through subjective periods in our life where we're having these feelings and emotions, or we're suffering within a prep, to really be able to take a step back, look at things objectively and say, what do I have to do to accomplish my goal? Am I trying to eat a little bit more because I'm hungry, or is this a necessity because it's going to better me long term? And that's where having an outside eye is really valuable. But I really think a big thing that I learned from prepping and from competing in bodybuilding was the ability and the value of self-reflecting. Let's reflect on a process. Let's extrapolate out. I have all these sheets of data and all these notes that I've collected over a 16-week prep. Let me look over and see where I did right and where I did wrong. Where were the errors in my ways? What can I learn from this? And at that moment, that's where I was able to take and I reflect upon myself when I'm getting the trophy, when I'm winning the show, or I'm not. And I'm able to take and get an objective viewpoint, although bodybuilding is not objective. But we do know if you won or lost. There's points. It doesn't mean that it was done fairly, but there's points on the scoreboard. And you're able to say, all right, all the decisions I made in the previous 16 weeks, where did it leave? It left me in a second place. And maybe in that moment, that doesn't feel right to me. I think I should have won. And I go back to the drawing board and I make different adjustments, or within the context of, say, a peak week, for anyone that's out there that is familiar with bodybuilding, that final week, maybe I did some adjustments. I should have adjusted water a little bit more. I should have carved up a little bit more because I ended up flat on stage. It's being able to look back in retrospect and really analyze things. And I think that's something that we could, benefit from doing in all aspects of our life, with our relationships, with our business, with our friendships. It's something, just that ability to reflect back and really critically analyze things, that was a great characteristic that I learned from bodybuilding.
I agree with you. And you actually brought up a beautiful segue. So reflection. I know when you hit me up and you're like, hey man, you got time to chat on a Sunday? I said, sure, for you, I do. And I was getting ready to cook breakfast with Keegan before we went to church and split off and had the conversation. We were both reflecting, because I think both you and I, it's very clear by now, we are very passionate about what we do. We love helping others. We love the competition with ourselves to be better, because Rumi said it best: he who cannot lead himself cannot lead others. And I agree with that 100%. When we chatted, we were reflecting because of our own projects we do and our own things we do in life, and where we wanted to go collectively as a whole. We said, okay, what is currently out there and where can we go with this podcast to make it different, to really help people out? Because there'll be a lot of people, you'll talk, say, about SIBO, but you can only get so much done in an hour podcast or so before you run to 2-3 hours, and nobody wants to listen to that shit. So what we decided was, with ours, Brandon and I collaborated and we said, hey, why don't we try a different approach? So what we're going to do, and I'm going to let Brandon kind of talk a little bit more about the direction, but I want to give you guys like the outline. This is going to be something that I don't think other people in the fitness space are doing right now, or even in the podcast space. So what we're going to do is, week 1, we're going to bring you the topic. We're going to educate you on it. These are going to be quick 30 to 40-minute episodes. We want you guys to really be able to hang in there with us, get to grow with us, and most importantly, get to learn and apply and make other people's lives better out there. The second episode will be all application, and we'll just break it down for you. And the third one, we're either going to do application, education part 2, like if we need to elaborate, or we're going to bring on a guest to talk with Brandon and I on this topic that we are like, hey, you're a thought leader in this space. We want to bring you on to chat with us. You know, we've already laid out these first 2 episodes. Go listen to them and let's collaborate and make a third one great. But the one that I'm most excited for is going to be the 4th one. It's going to be a live Q&A with you guys on Tuesday nights, the 4th Tuesday of every month. And Brandon and I will be announcing this. We're going to have the Zoom in our link tree. So all you have to do is go to our link tree that night, log in. You guys can bring, maybe a glass of wine, who knows, whatever you want to do, hang out with us, drink some water, ask us whatever questions. And that will be the live episode. It will be all about that one topic. And we're going to rotate through this a topic every 4 weeks. We might go back to others. We definitely want to hear what you guys have to say, but we really want to make this as interactive as possible. Both Brandon and I agreed that while we do have busy schedules, it didn't matter how busy it was if we couldn't serve correctly. And that was something we really wanted to do with this podcast, was to lead and serve efficiently and effectively. And I like IG Lives, and I know Brandon does too, but we wanted something that felt more, I guess, community-based to be the right word there. And we figured, hey, what better way than to chat with you guys one Tuesday every month in a place that you guys know it's just, we're all trying to get better and we want to help. So that's how we're going to do the 4 episodes. I'll let Brandon talk a little bit more about the direction of stuff. Then we have a couple other points before we wrap out for this first one, but I'm really excited about the layout, dude, because I know you've been on a ton of podcasts. I host the Excellence Cartel, and this is completely different than what you and I have ever done on any other projects.
No, absolutely. And I know for a fact that no one else is doing it in this format. And it works both for you and I, but also for the audience, because it's something we're setting a bar. And really the goal with this podcast is to set a standard within this industry. And this is something that Jeff and I behind the scenes really talk about often, because here's the thing. We have a great industry that is still, it's still bridling. It's still young and it's evolving. It's getting super saturated. Don't get me wrong, but it still has so much room for growth. And so, I'll tell you from my perspective, I started coaching in 2013, and there was literally a few people coaching at the time. I remember when I first told I was training people in person and I was moving to a corporate job, so I was no longer going to be able to make the same hours. And I said, listen, we could take this online. I could do your programming. I could do your nutrition. It just won't be the same in-person connection. And many of them, because they had worked with me for years, they were fine with that. But then when I had new clients that were coming to me and expecting an in-person trainer, when I told them about the concept of online coaching, they were very confused about what it was, or if it was real, or, there was a lot of skepticism, to say the least. And since that time, online coaching has become so much more popular and prominent. However, there's a lot of things in this space that really haven't evolved with the times. So we've gotten super saturated and a lot more popular, but there's a lot of people that have podcasts, or they're coaching themselves, and they're just not raising the standard of excellence. They're operating in the ways of 2013, but we're in 2022, and there's different expectations, and there's a different standard of quality in terms of the information you present, as well as how you treat clientele, and then also how you should operate. So we're going to have a very structured and organized type of format. So you guys have expectations. We have expectations as show, hosts, but also that you guys can expect that every Tuesday you come in, or, every week that we have the podcast, that you're able to tune in. When we go live, you'll have an expectation every week. We're going to be there with information, and the format. So if you miss one, you'll know, all right, I missed the information aspect. I could double up next week and I get the information and the application back to back. And it's something that you can expect, and there's a flow to the show, but then it also incorporates the audience themselves, because a lot of times, if you look even on Jeff's own show, we did an energy flux 2-parter. And the reason for that is because I get so many questions after these podcasts. So I'll deliver value in terms of information and research, and then people want to know the application. And that's really one of my goals, bridging that gap between just not only giving you guys value-based information that's research-backed and that has evidence behind it, but also how do you use that information? Because knowledge is nothing without application. Knowledge is nothing without the ability to put it into practice. And that's really where Jeff and I's experience are going to be coming into play here, because we have worked with, I've worked with over 1,000 clients, and Jeff, I'm sure you could say probably the same, right?
Oh, dude, like in 17 years, I have 104, 105 people I work with consistently every month. And then that's not including what I've done the 16 years before. So yeah, most definitely, bro. And when you touch that many lives, they imprint on you. And if it 100%. Imprints in the way that got you into this industry, which is to help people improve their lives, improve their situations, and improve their trajectory, then you have no choice but to get better because of that imprint.
Yeah, so we really want to deliver. We know that there's so many podcasts out there, and there's so many other people that you could be listening to, or you could be spending your time, and time is valuable. Here's the thing, like Jeff and I, we both run multiple businesses. We have full, clientele lists. Like, we don't have a lot of time, but we really do think that what we're providing and what we're coming together to work on within this podcast is something that's going to be not only truly important, but valuable and impactful. So that's why we're doing this. We're doing this for all those that we have within our community, and really to set that standard on the standard of, information that we put out, but also, what you can garner from this information and from our experience, because we're not just, I'm not just going to share the research. I'm going to share you what I've done in the last 10 years in the trenches, and Jeff's going to share 2 decades in the trenches. So it's going to be stuff that you get information, you get value packed bits of info, but you also get the, applicable side, which is something that I don't really see. I see one or the other. I see people that have a lot of information, but they haven't really utilized it. And then I see other people that they just go based off their experience and they discard or they neglect the research out there. And it's kind of like, if it doesn't fit their narrative, they don't utilize it, nor do they acknowledge it. So we want to be different than that. We really want to be in the middle. And that's why I said initially, we're trying to cut through some of the complexity and really provide clarity, because clarity is when you understand something and you're really able to not only describe it and to be able to put it in a concise manner to other people, but it's showing a true mastery of that knowledge that you've garnered, because you've not only learned it, it's one thing to learn something, it's another thing to utilize it and to really see it in practice and to be able to take what's useful and discard what's useless.
I agree with you. There's actually a good book I just started called Think Again by Adam Grant. And he talks about the greatest thing that you could ever do is the ability to rethink. And I agree with that 100%. I know as a coach, as a business owner, and I think you would agree with me, there are positions today that I think completely different on than I did 5 years ago. And even maybe 2 years ago, just because as you start doing application in the trenches, you go, wait, not all this lines up to that beautiful study I read or that coach over there said. And then you have to start tinkering it. And that's why we really wanted to get into this podcast, because like you said, there's a glaring hole. Even I know it from the podcast I'm on. There's only so much time to present what you can present, and you have to hope for the big takeaways and then kind of move on. And we've seen that in the industry. But what are other things, Brandon, that you think you've seen in the industry that kind of, I don't know, would maybe make people want to like pay a little bit more attention? Because like you said, it's a very cluttered space. There's a lot of coaches. There's a lot of, I guess, lack of better word, competition. But where are you seeing that the industry is going for us to be able to really make that change in what we're trying to do with our audience going forward?
I see 2 ends of the spectrum. So I see extremes, and I think that could be said about all aspects within fitness and nutrition in general. I see a lot of extremism. So people promoting extreme methods or strategies. I see a lot of tying themselves to protocols rather than principles. And even just from an extreme perspective, I see people do one of 2 things within this space. They'll either, they'll make the mistake of simplifying something like nutrition so much that they, it's great to simplify things if it's going to make it more understandable. But if you simplify things so down to the point that you dumb it down where it doesn't actually become useful or helpful, you've overdone it. But at the same time, if you're making the information so complex that no one can understand nor use, it isn't useful as well. So that's really where we're trying to shoot in the middle and be more moderate in terms of our approach, and really combined both our experience with our knowledge and be able to really bridge the gap for other people that might not be coming from our background, whether it be with my research background or your experience background. And they're really going to be able to get these big, important concepts, understand them a lot better. And then another thing is, I see a lot of people espousing information as it's like a set and forget principle, as it's, there's these protocols, they'll tell you, well, if you have SIBO, you're going to do this. If you have someone that you want to get them to lose body fat, use this type of deficit. And there's not enough context taken into consideration. And what I really want to get across to people is we are all genetically unique individuals. And you really have to, if you're a real coach, you work with real people, you will never get a question on a podcast and tell someone a direct answer, because you'll know that generalities do not apply to broad-based, amounts of people. So if you give them a general answer, it's not going to be applicable nor useful to anyone out there. And it's almost like that whole ideology that, how do you lose body fat? You eat less, exercise more. That's truthful, but that isn't useful, nor is that helpful. Because if you don't teach someone how they actually do that, how they get into an energy deficit, how they manage their caloric balance, how they're able to titrate up their energy expenditure, you're not telling them any information that they can actually use in the real world to get real results. And that's what I really see a lot of podcasts doing. They kind of put their info out there as it's the be all end all, and don't consider the context. They don't consider the individuals, which is one of the reasons why we're going to have, you guys yourselves ask us questions and really kind of cater them towards the individual that's sitting in front of us, and also try to give you guys some more nuanced answers, which will help more people. And that's really our goal. But another thing I see is, we have a lot of people within the coaching space that claim to be coaches, but really what they are programmers. And this is like the whole concept that I speak to you often about is I look at coaching like I do making a meal. And what I mean by that is we have several different ways that we could make a meal and buy. This is an analogy. So really what I mean by that, there's many different ways that we can help a client. So think about cooking a meal as helping a client, or cooking a meal as creating a program. And in this industry, we have different categories. We have bakers, we have cooks, and then we have chefs. And these are the different types of coaches that encompass this industry. So if you just think it from a conceptual level, baking is a science, whereas cooking is an art that's combined with the science. So what I mean by that is, baking is you follow a recipe. You follow it from point A to point Z. There's no originality in there. There's no context taken into consideration. It's literally the coach that's a programmer. It's the person that gets this information, but they have a way of doing things. They have a protocol. They don't fit the plan to the client. They fit the client to the plan. So they don't take anything into consideration. They just pop out a generic cookie cutter program that they've seen work in other clients in the past. So they automatically apply it to the new person coming in front of them. But here's the thing. You need to first, as a coach, get away from programming and get towards coaching. And coaching is an individualized format and approach to the person that you're working with on an individual basis. So if you work with 100 clients, it's 100 different programs, because it needs to be, designed for the person, their preferences, their lifestyle, their needs, their history, their wants, all these different things. And so with that, cooking is when you start combining both the art of coaching as well as the science of coaching. So instead of just following the recipe, a cook, if you were ever to see like a great cook, you'll see that they add a little bit of sugar, a little bit of spice, and they're really trying to, cater the recipe towards the person sitting in front of them and what their preferences are and what they want in that meal. And then we have another level out there. And this is where we're trying to go towards, which is a chef. And that's mastery of all these concepts. They can bake, they can cook, they can make you a masterful menu. They can do everything across the board. They can work with any type of clientele. And those are the people that take both their experience working with thousands as well as the research, and they take the client's preference. And really, that's what evidence-based coaching is. And a lot of people don't realize that. They hear evidence-based and they think, oh, it's only what the research says. No, evidence-based coaching is a triangle, and it's encompassed by 3 different components. It's what the scientific literature says. It is the experience and the anecdote of the coach or the professional, and it is the preferences, the lifestyle, and the history of the client that you're working with, and taking all those things in, and they're all a third. None of them override the other. You take all of them as a third of the piece of the puzzle, and you put them together to create a program that's fit for the client in front of you, a plan that's perfect for them. Because a plan is only as good as it can be adhered to, or as good as it's specified to the individual that it's made for. And if a lot of issues are here that you'll hear people talk about training, and they say, do this amount of volume or do these sets and reps, and everything's a protocol. You have a GI disorder, and we're going to utilize these type of antimicrobials and this, that, and the other. And it's always very specific. And that's what people want. They want simple stories because it's easy to follow. It's easy to follow along. But here's the thing. A lot of times, if you're out in the audience and you take those plans and you apply it to yourself or your clients, you're going to see that more times than not, they don't work. So we're going to be the guys that go more into the nuances. We consider more the context, but we try to simplify things and provide clarity on these concepts so that you guys really see what true coaching is about and what true, information delivery should be about.
I agree with you. I relate the health and fitness industry a lot into the wealth side, like, growing your 401k and things like that. It's a steady process that you have to keep evaluating. That's very individualized. And a lot of people, because of, I think the fitness industry as a whole has lacked leadership over the last couple of decades. And because of that, we're sitting at a point that our consumers, and I know this from running a gym, they'll come up to me and be like, hey, I have SIBO and I have this and that. What do I need to do to fix it? And I'm like, well, do you get your steps every day? Do you do this? Do you do that? Well, no. They're like, but I saw you did that. I'm like, well, that person does all this. So I agree with what you're saying. It's a lot of removal and understanding that every person has their own scenario and their own situation to work with. But where I see the issues in the industry tend to be more towards the leadership mentor side. And I don't know about you, Brandon, but what got me into this space was the ability to not only lead others, but the ability to constantly refine the leadership of myself. And I want the listeners to understand that we are both coming at you guys. Like, please hit us up. Please engage with us. We want to really serve you all and make this a product that you guys really enjoy. And we enjoy doing for you guys, and then seeing you all once a month on our live Q&A on the Zoom. Because what this space really needs is a lot more heart and a lot less money, in my opinion. And that's what I think we're hoping to change with our product.
Absolutely. Recently we had a conversation, and I also had a conversation with Michael Clifford from iLead about this, who's a good friend of both of ours. And really, what we have to realize in this industry is if we raise the bar, so that's our goal. Our goal is to raise a standard, to set a standard. And if we raise the bar, there's enough room at the table for all of us to eat and for all of us to prosper. And here's the thing, the coaches within this industry that are listening to this, you all have an opportunity to sit at the table. But it's if you're going to raise yourselves to the standards that we've set, if you have a seat or not. And it's not that, it's a competition between coaches, because there's enough clients to work with for all of us. However, it's about, are you raising the standard in which you operate your practices, the information you deliver, and the clientele that you work with, or not? And that's really what we're trying to do from a leadership perspective, is just try to shine a light on what direction this industry should be going into, and what things and changes we can make to really better it. Because ultimately, my goal, and I know this is your goal, I got into this industry, and honestly, my degree's in law. And I often talk about this with Jason Theobald, who's a good friend of both of ours. And I could have stayed doing that. I could have had a very lucrative career. Would I've helped as many people? I think that's questionable. However, I got into this for two things. I wanted to truly impact people in a positive manner and help the clients that I worked with. And the second thing is my goal, and part of what I see as a legacy, and we've spoken about this, is to leave this industry better than I found it. And I'll tell you, we're going to keep working until we do just that.
I am excited to do it with you, man, because I always like your energy, and I know we're on the same page with where we're going. I will say this, though. I personally look forward to, more than anything, just watching people grow and learn in this space with us. And with that being said, guys, if you all are coaching listening to us, hit us up. We'd love to bring you on the podcast. If you guys are audience members and you guys are interested in coming on and doing the Q&As, hit us up. If you guys are interested in just chatting, hit us up. We're here to serve, and I really want to impart upon that. Brandon, is there anything else you would like to say? I think that's all the notes I have, because we covered, how we're going to do things, where we think the industry is going, and why we're wanting to throw our hat in the ring together and say, hey, we're just here to make it a little bit better. And we hope you guys enjoy our journey with us.
No, I think we've covered everything that was on the list and on the agenda. The one thing I do want to reinforce that you've made very clear, but I just want to, elucidate this fact, is we do want engagement, guys. So never fear reaching out to us. Give us some ideas. I'll be honest with you. I've done close to 100 podcasts over the last couple of years. And the reason for that is because previous to that, I never did podcasts, but I got so many DMs per day that I got to a point that I really couldn't answer them in depth. If anyone has ever talked to me or seen me present at a seminar or heard a podcast that I'm on, and you'll know that throughout the course of this podcast, I tend to be quite verbose. I go into nuances, and I really like to consider context and details and really analyze things and provide as much of a breadth of info as possible. And I couldn't do that in the characters of a IG caption, or I couldn't do that within the constraints of an IG or Facebook message. So really what I did was I turned my attention to podcasts to try to benefit as many people as possible. And I'll tell you, over the last couple of years, I've gotten hundreds of messages, which I really do appreciate. People that have listened, continue to listen to all the podcasts that I've done. And here's the thing, podcasts have not only allowed me to positively impact the lives of others, but it's also positively impacted mine. I worked a job where I traveled 75,000 miles a year for year on and year out on the road, and I listened to podcasts. And at that point, there wasn't many podcasts, but it ended up giving me something. I consider this mindfulness. So instead of spending my time mindlessly, driving and being frustrated by traffic, I was able to zone in with a podcast that really provided me with information and made me think more critically, really analyze what I was doing with my life, and gather information throughout the process. And within the, along the journey of podcasting over the last couple of years, it's connected me with so many like-minded individuals because I would reach out. And I'll tell you, this relationship that Jeff and I have, I consider him someone in my close group of friends. He's a part of my inner circle. That happened from a podcast. I used to listen to his podcast every single week. And when he first started it, I had already known Jason. I reached out to him because I really liked his energy. I liked what he was presenting and the direction and where his mind was at. And we created a connection. We got on a phone. We had, I think our first phone call was over an hour. I remember I was on a walk, and it was incredible. And it's connected us to the point that I've visited him in Nashville multiple times. I've went to the PC, and I've actually been a presenter. So I went from being someone that was a fan in the audience to one of his key presenters at his last, seminar in Dallas. So here's the thing, guys, if you really want to get connected and network, within this industry, reach out and connect with people. That's what social media is about. And I think a lot of people kind of lose sight of what social media is about. They only look at it from the media perspective, their marketing or advertising. Mm-hmm. They don't realize that the first word in that bracket, it's social. So let's engage with one another. Tell us what you want to hear about, or ask your questions, and we'll answer it in an open format where it doesn't just benefit you who's curious about it. There could be dozens to hundreds of other individuals that have the same exact question as you, but they were hesitant to reach out, or they just, they failed to do so. And now everyone benefits.
I agree, man. And I want to caveat that no questions too stupid, too silly or anything. I mean, I get people coming to me at the gym, be like, hey, can you come over and show me how to work this machine or work this, or what about this supplement? Or if I'm eating this, how should I eat that? All these questions are always helpful because, like Brandon said, if you don't ask the question, there might have been 100 people who had the same question who lost out too. It only takes one connection, and that's what we're looking for. And I think that that's where we're really wanting to make a difference with our podcast. We want to strictly base it with being with you guys, kumbaya, at a fire, hanging out, having a good time, and making a bond happen. And I know that that's our goal, to bring that to you guys. Brandon, where can everybody find you at, man? And then I'll go with my stuff and we'll call this out.
Sounds good, my man. So guys, feel free to check me out and follow me, as well as engage with me at @BrandonDeCruz_ on Instagram. And then also, if you guys have any inquiries or questions, feel free to reach out to me at my preferred email, which is bdecruz, so BDACRUZ fitness@gmail.com.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram as Jeff Unbreakable Black. That's homage to my bone disease, except I get broken quite a bit. Funny story. And I'm also on Medium. I do a lot of writing. I started moving a lot of my writing there. I believe I'm medium.com/Jeff Black, or Jeff Unbreakable Black. And if you guys would like to email me, I'm Jeff@relentlessforever.com. Like I said, be sure to reach out, hit us up. If you guys need help with finding those Zoom links, never a problem. We're going to be putting it in our link trees going forward. And with that being said, guys, we're looking forward to starting this journey with you all. And Brandon, man, thanks for taking the time to join me, dude. And I really appreciate you thinking of hitting me up to do this with you, because I know we're just how you and I are as people, because you're one of my close friends. We talk a lot. And the ability for us to synergize and just do this together just has made me so happy. And this is a project that I've kind of always wanted to do some different stuff in the podcast realm, because I'm like you. I want to get out there with these high level topics and then break them down even simple ways. And then, the best part about Brandon and I is we have two different approaches to how we teach and how we educate. And that's where you guys are going to be able to learn, because it's two voices coming together as one clear voice to give you guys educational application, and most of all, interaction to make an impact in your lives and others with what we are doing.
Absolutely, man. I look forward to this. I appreciate you doing it with me. And like I have told you off air and in private, I would not have wanted to do this with anyone else. So I look forward to this chapter. And guys, thank you so much for listening to our first episode. Please reach out if you have any other questions or topics that you want to hear us cover within the next coming weeks. And we look forward to engaging in this journey with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, guys, just so you all know, going forward, every Friday, these podcast episodes will release. So, every Friday will be there. And if it isn't, me and Brandon will let you guys know, because we really want to make sure you guys understand where we are at and where we are going with all our things. So be sure to give us a follow, give us a shout, connect. And if you guys got anything, sure to let us know. But Brandon, you have yourself a badass day, my man.
You too, brother.
All right. Awesome. Guys, thanks again.